NASCAR is close to announcing a Chicago street course race, and it looks like a fan favorite track might be the casualty of that. And Helio Castroneves says that if he won an SRX race, he would get an opportunity to race in NASCAR, and he won the SRX race. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start off paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Chase Briscoe's 2022 Magical Vacation Planners updated scheme that we're going to see in a couple races this season. This one's a little bit different than the one we saw at the All-Star race. I think it actually looks really solid. Really cool that Chase Briscoe is running a different scheme. It seems like he's been running more different variety of schemes really since the beginning of the year. Remember, Mahindra Tractors really is a majority sponsor for him this season, but I love the fact that he's running a different scheme at different portions this season. And the only other paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Williams' 2022 Alloy Employers Peg Leg Porker scheme that I believe we're going to see at Nashville this weekend. Honestly, I love this paint scheme. I think the colors look very solid. I think they did a really solid job on it, and I'm absolutely looking forward to see on the racetrack. I think it looks good, and I'm definitely looking forward to see on the racetrack here later this season. I believe it's going to be this weekend. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Pitbull. Pitbull was on Good Morning America, I believe, on Friday, and he actually gave some love to Trackhouse Racing on Good Morning America. Gave a shout out to Justin Marks, Ty Norris, Ross Chastain, and Daniel Suarez. He's a big fan of the team, of course. Pitbull, a co-owner of the organization of Trackhouse Racing, and a massive investor into the team as well, and bringing a lot of different sponsorships as well. Pitbull being a part of technically DEI, because basically Trackhouse Racing is technically DEI. I think it's amazing to see that Pitbull is getting involved with this team, is showing a lot of support. He's been in the racetrack somewhat as well. And to see a guy that's really involved with the team and really showing their love for it is just a great thing overall. And it gets people that aren't even fans of NASCAR watch Good Morning America. It really helps them when they see Pitbull on the screen. It really helps them get involved and love it. So I think this is really awesome. Great to see for sure. And I love that Pitbull is giving a lot of support to the track and Trackhouse Racing. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Dexter Bean. As Dexter Bean is making his season debut next weekend at Road America, driving for DGM Racing. Dexter Bean, I believe, was supposed to make a start earlier this year, but I believe he DQ'd at Daytona, if I'm not mistaken, and now he will be basically attempting to make his debut at Road America. Number was not clear on what number he will race. I would, though, expect that he'll either drive the 91 or the 90 when that car, because we haven't really seen the 90 car race too much. Or maybe he'll drive the 92. Who really knows? But Dexter Bean, I think, is a driver. He's been in the sport for a very long time. And I think this is a great opportunity. He's got a cool sponsor that he's running as well, which I think looks absolutely incredible. And I think Dexter Bean's got a shot to have a decent run. He's actually a really decent road course racer. So if he can get a top 20s, we know that DGM's road course program is generally really good. I think he's got a good shot at getting done. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. But I think it's cool to see Dexter Bean is back this weekend. He'll be driving for that team. Not this weekend, next weekend. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Camden Murphy. As it was announced this morning that Camden Murphy is going to drive the 30 for On Points Motorsports this weekend in Nashville with Rowdy Energy sponsoring him. Camden Murphy, for those who do not know, currently competes in Monster Jam. He's been in Monster Jam for the last couple years. While he competes in Monster Jam, he has been also competing in NASCAR as well. And this will be his first start of the 2022 season. Camden Murphy's had some decent runs in the past. He's driven for Nemco Motorsports in the past, but he hasn't been a driver that's generally been a contender. And I'll be honest, at On Point Motorsports, they have not been really a competitive team this year, really with Tate Fogelman, whoever's been in the car, or truck, they've generally not been the most competitive team. And of course, On Point Motorsports is coming off of a not so good run earlier this year at Sonoma. So Camden Murphy's really going to be needing to have a good run in that truck. I think they had a pretty decent run at Knoxville, if I'm not mistaken, but they're going to be needing more good runs later this year. But it's cool to see that Camden Murphy is back with On Point Motorsports. I'm wishing him the best of luck and glad to see that Camden Murphy is going to be in the truck for the first time. Ultimately, a top 20 would be really strong for the team, but I've not really been seeing the competitive of that team, but hopefully he'll have a really strong run here later this season. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're going to talk about Nashville Super Speedway. Now, this weekend, it is expected to be extremely hot for Nashville. It's almost expected to be 100 degrees as a matter of fact, and the heat index is supposed to be around 120 degrees as well. There's been a lot of concerns because there's no coolers allowed for this event. So there have been some guidelines that have been announced for Nashville Super Speedway. Some of those things include filling stations. They have added a ton of filling stations and free filling stations. I think there's going to be 6 around the track, and you'll be able to bring those in. They're also going to be, because of the temperatures, they're going to be having unlimited water bottles at the track as well. Free park is also going to be a thing, but they're also going to be allowing coolers, going to be allowing 18 by 18 clear bags to come in as well to be inspected. First of all, I really believe that coolers should be a thing, and I think one thing that really could have fixed the situation is basically starting the race at nighttime. I think this should have been a night race. It is closer to the night, but it's 4 p.m. when the race starts on Central Time, so it's still going to be really, really hot when the race happens. But I appreciate that at least they're trying to, at this point, get the situation sorted out, because I think, again, the situation with how hot it really is going to be, I think is a massive, massive problem on its own. So I'm glad they're trying to take some precautions with this, but there are still some things they do need to address. First thing, they should have allowed coolers. I don't know why they did not allow it, especially with the really hot temperatures. This could have solved major issues. Every other track, including all the SMI tracks, because SMI took over the Speedway earlier this year, so I really thought that at the end of last year, they took over. So I really am shocked, to be honest with you, they've not really sorted this problem out. But it is a good thing to see that at least they're trying to sort it out now and get the situation, because it's supposed to be extremely hot, and I'm really nervous that people are going to get really, really sick. They need to have a lot of EMS personnel on standby as well with the extreme heat coming this weekend. We saw how the drivers were at the SRX race at 5 Flags, and it was 100 degrees, and they ran only a few laps. So it is a big concern, but at least they're taking some precautions. I do appreciate them at least trying to step up and fix this problem, but I think what could have fixed this problem a little bit more is basically quintessentially having coolers allowed into the Speedway. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Glory to God Racing. We've got an update on the situation. So last Friday, we talked about on the channel what has been going on with Glory to God Racing. And basically, Travis McCauley, who drove for Glory to God Racing at Sonoma, basically went on Matthew Burrows' Tim Bennett article that he revealed and talked about how the truck was not prepared. Tim Veens and Ryan Bell, the crew chief of the team, right, being Ryan Bell, and Tim Veens being the owner, they planned to release a statement. And they actually did release a statement later on Friday after I got done filming. So they released a statement on what happened in Sonoma. They stated the truck and team and truck were ready to practice and qualify for the truck race at Sonoma. Now, let me say this. If you have to go and read the statement yourself, but basically said that they had the truck ready to go. And Ryan Bell, who was the crew chief at the time, basically said that he really feels bad for what happened to Travis McCauley, because he likes Travis McCauley, but he said there's really nothing he could do about that. I'm absolutely going to call BS on this, because here's a couple things I have a problem with. Number one, if the truck was really, really prepared, why was the brake package not in the truck? You need to have brakes in a truck at Sonoma, especially of all places. You're at a road course. Why did you not have the brakes ready to go? Second thing, if the truck was clearly ready to go, why did you not have a standby driver ready to go? Keith McGee was right there. He was available to use. But you guys did not have enough time to get him in there. If you really were really in it, why would you seriously not have the truck prepared? And what I find really, really funny is the fact the week that they get called out for at Knoxville, 4016 does, they legitimately basically have the truck and they run in a pretty decent position for the truck breaks apart. I find it funny the week they get called out for it, they have one of their best runs ever until the end of the race. Kind of coincidence? I think not. Now, Tim Veens and Glory to God Racing have been involved in some really, really big scandals over the last year or so. They were supposed to have Johnny Sauter drive for 13 races in the team, but he apparently was not paid, or he was not able to drive more than the first race, or he just got frustrated how the team was. Then Matt Jaskell was supposed to run the whole entire season with the team, and he come to find out that he basically got kicked out after basically bringing a ton of funding to the team, and they still kept the funding on the truck. So I don't really trust this team. I'm not really sure how much longer Glory to God Racing is going to be around, but I really feel like that by the end of this year, they're not even going to be a thing, and they're going to be a thing in the past, which is unfortunate because you really want to see this team survive and succeed. But when they're basically lying to people and not telling the truth, and people can smell right through it, I think people can smell right through the BS. They really, really could, and it's really understandable why people don't trust this team. It's very understandable, and it makes a lot of sense why people did not trust this team. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Camping World in the Truck Series. And there is a lot of questions around in regards to the future of the Camping World entitlement sponsor of the Truck Series. So according to Adam Stern, Camping World's longtime title sponsorship of the Truck Series expires after this year. and the future of the deal is uncertain as the sides have yet to reach a renewal. Camden Murphy has been around in the Truck Series for a very, very long time. They started sponsoring the Truck Series in 2009, I believe up until around 2017 or 2018. Then Gander Outdoors took over for a couple years, and then around a year or two ago, Camping World took over. Now, what I've really noticed over the last year or so is that Camping World has really not been involved with the sport as much, and we'll probably get into why I think it is in a little bit here, but I do honestly believe that one of the big reasons, we'll get into a little bit on what exactly is going on. But remember last year, Marcus Lemonis basically sponsored like 15 or 16 trucks. We have not seen Marcus Lemonis really get involved in the sport at all, whether it's the Xfinity Series, the Cup Series, or the Truck Series. He hasn't really been doing a ton of the excitement. Basically, the only thing he's really been doing is he's been doing is, really this year is the only thing he's done is the Triple Truck Challenge where they get $50,000, but that's something from the Truck Series. Initially, I don't know if Marcus Lemonis really came up with that. So I don't know exactly what's going on with this, but I would not be surprised if a new sponsor comes in. And if Camden World does not sponsor the Truck Series, what sponsor do I think has a really good shot of taking over? I think Coca-Cola would be a great one. Coca-Cola Truck Series would make a ton of sense. Coca-Cola has a big branding in NASCAR. I know they don't sponsor a lot of teams in the Truck Series, but I think it'd be amazing if Coca-Cola was a sponsor that was able to come in and sponsor the Truck Series. Who knows at this point what really is going to happen with the Truck Series and who will sponsor, who will not sponsor, but it's kind of interesting to see the Camp World may not be sponsoring the Truck Series after the 2022 season. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Colton Herta. It was reported by Adam Stern on Friday afternoon that Colton Herta has an extremely good chance of becoming an F1 driver if he performs well in testing per Zach Brown, whether it's with McLaren or another team. But Zach Brown said that we are under contract for both our current drivers for 2023, so I don't see 2023 being an opportunity. Currently, Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris both drive for McLaren F1 organization. Now, Lando Norris' contract, I believe, goes through 24 or 2025, and Daniel Ricciardo's contract right now goes through 2023. But Daniel Ricciardo has not been performing really, really good so far this year with McLaren. In fact, Lando Norris has been outperforming in pretty much in every metric so far this year. And outside of the win for Daniel Ricciardo at Monza last year for the Italian Grand Prix, Lando Norris has outperformed him. And Daniel Ricciardo really has not been that great, really since he left the Red Bull Racing organization. Colton Herta, of course, currently drives for Andretti Autosport in IndyCar. It actually was supposed to go over to Formula One this year if Andretti had bought up Sauber or Alfa Romeo, but Alfa Romeo basically realized that they had a ton of money involved, and that deal went through. Colton Herta was supposed to take over, but Zhou Guanyu basically took over that ride, and Colton Herta was supposed to drive it with Valtteri Bottas being his teammate. We know how that deal went through. Colton Herta is going to end up in Formula One at some point, whether it's with a team that we'll talk about here in the near future, or if it ends up being with McLaren. I think it will be at least one more year before he does go over. I think 2023 will not be the year Colton Herta jumps over, because I think Colton wants to run one more year in IndyCar. Because you have to remember, Colton Herta is only 21 or 22 years old. He has plenty of time to get over to Formula One and race there, and if he does well enough in Formula One and doesn't want to continue racing, he can instantly come back to IndyCar. Because Colton Herta, I think, is a future star. Colton Herta is a very, very talented driver. He's got a lot of potential to get things done. And theoretically, I think it would make a ton of sense for him to come over and race in F1. I think, and one thing I've been saying is that I think one of the big things is Formula One really needs that American presence, because the American presence of Formula One hasn't really grown. There's going to be 3 Formula One races in the United States next year, and we will be seeing huge ratings increases for Formula One as well, and those ratings are expected to come out for the Canadian GP tomorrow. I think it's really cool to see, though, that Colton Herta has a good chance, and Zach Brown's really high on Colton Herta, who, of course, drives an IndyCar, and Zach Brown does have a very big association in IndyCar. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens in regards if Colton Herta makes the jump over or not. But Colton Herta is a very talented driver, and it will not surprise me if he does in the near future come to Formula One in the next years, because I think he's going to Formula One regardless. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Pierre Gasly. As Pierre Gasly is expected to return to AlphaTauri in 2023. Pierre Gasly has been driving for AlphaTauri really for the last couple of years now. He has one career Formula One victory coming at Monza in 2020. Pierre Gasly's had a pretty decent year so far in Formula One. It's not as good as he was in 2021, but Pierre Gasly has been decently consistent at points this year. He is still looking for his first podium, but he's finished in the top 5 a couple times this year, if I'm not mistaken. Has had some decent success. There have been a lot of rumors and rumblings that Pierre Gasly was potentially going to be looking at going to the other teams. But I think that the boss of that team of Fleet, France Tost, really wants to keep him in the organization. And I don't blame him. Pierre Gasly is a very, very experienced driver. And remember, he went to Red Bull, I believe in 2017 or 2018, and he really, really struggled. So I think if they were smart enough, they would keep Pierre Gasly in the organization for as long as possible. How long would I keep him in the team? I think at least for 2023 or 2024. Then Pierre Gasly, if he wanted to, he could look at different options and go to other organizations. I do think Pierre Gasly, though, deserves his opportunity to stay in AlphaTauri. I think he's outperformed Yuki Tsunoda in many areas this year, though I will say Yuki Tsunoda this year looks a lot more competent, though he did not have a good run in the Canadian GP, where he did crash out. But I think it makes a ton of sense to keep Pierre Gasly in this organization. I think he's a good enough driver to get it done, and I think it's great to see that he will be back with the team next year. The question is, will it be Yuki Tsunoda driving the car, or will it be Oscar Piastri taking over that ride next year? As Oscar Piastri is on the minds of everybody. He's being considered for the Haas ride at the moment. He's being considered for an Alfa Romeo ride at the moment. He's being considered for a lot of rides at the moment right now, and I think he's on the radar of every single Formula One team, including the top teams. And I think that gets the field nervous, and you got a guy like Oscar Piastri, who knows how to get it done and knows how to get it done behind the wheel. You got to be nervous about that. So Pierre Gasly expected to return to the team. There have been a lot of questions about that, but he is expected to return to AlphaTauri Racing in 2023. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Andretti Global. Now, we've talked about Andretti Global on this channel many, many times. We got a little bit of an update on it. So, it was reported by Adam Stern yesterday, I believe yesterday, that Zach Brown doesn't think that the Andretti Global bid is dead yet, but he acknowledged that it is meeting resistance in the F1 paddock, even though he is a supporter of it. He says, I hope it's not dead. I don't think it's dead, but it certainly seems like it's meeting a lot of resistance. Now, for a lot of you who've been not paying attention to the situation at the Andretti Global, Andretti Autosport is looking to join Formula One with Andretti Global. They're looking to have two cars. They are partnering up with Renault, as they have a big partnership with Alpine in IMSA. They're partnering up with Alpine for IMSA going into next year with the LMDH programs, I believe, for next year. And they are looking to also join Formula One in 2023 or 2024. That's when they're planning to join Formula One. They have a basis being planned in London, England, and they are basically ready to go at this point to make the jump. They have all the parts and pieces. The big issue is that a lot of the top tier teams, this includes Mercedes and I believe Red Bull as well, are really not wanting them to come over because of the pay cuts. They don't want an 11th team. And we've already known that Toto Wolff, who is the principal of Mercedes, basically says that the Andretti Autosport team and the Andretti Global team, Andretti name alone does not have enough staying power to join Formula One. And this is where I call BS on Toto Wolff. The Andretti name has more of a name in the world of racing than your team has ever had and you've ever had, Toto Wolff. And if it wasn't for the fact that you guys had 6 or 7 years great when the 2014 regulations came around, you would not be a team that would be known in the first place. You guys don't have as much staying power as the name Andretti. And let me say this too. I don't think they like Americans as much in Formula One. I really don't think that a lot of the people higher ups in that team really love Americans too much. I bet some of the smaller teams would love them to come over, like Williams, but I think you have some of the higher up teams that don't want them. Why? Less money coming in. But I think that because the thing is, like I mentioned in the past, we've seen a massive growth of Formula One in the United States. I think that if Formula One wants to keep its presence in the United States long term, I think an American-based team needs to basically happen. So that's why I'm saying because I think it needs to happen. It really needs to happen where we need an American-based team. You're coming to the sport. I do not understand why it's meeting resistance. It really needs to happen. It's kind of frustrating. It's been really frustrating to see all the backlash from some of those people and the higher-ups of those teams. Because an American-based team would really exponentially grow. You've got so many American talent to go over. Logan Sargent is a development driver for Williams. He's eyeing a potential ride next year in Formula One at one of the Williams rides. He's been eyeing one of those rides. You've got Colton Herta, who's extremely talented, who would like to come over. And I think Andretti would make a ton of sense for them to come over in 2024. I really hope that they don't have much more resistance going forward. But to be honest with you, I'm really nervous there's going to be a lot more resistance, and it could be a massive problem going forward. But I don't understand the backlash from some of these higher-up teams. I really do not get it. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Camping World Truck Series broadcast from Knoxville. Now, let me say this. If you follow me on Twitter, you have seen me a lot this year criticize the broadcast for all three series, whether that's Cup, Xfinity Series, or Trucks. And the Truck Series broadcasts this year have been not that great. And I think this past weekend's race at Knoxville really took the cake for one of the worst broadcasts I have ever seen this year. It was so bad. Number one, the energy in the booth was not that great. I think Jamie Little did okay, but she did not do amazing. Phil Parsons did the best he could, and Josh Sims, he did solid but not great, and he had Trevor Bayne who did okay. I think the star of the broadcast was a pit rotor, Heather Dubose, who has a lot of dirt experience, brought a lot of dirt knowledge, and did a really, really good job. But where they really screwed up, they screwed up in so many areas on the broadcast. First of all, they missed a truck flipping upside down. They missed Jessica Friesen flipping upside down and trying to continue, which is very similar to what Dale Earnhardt did in 1997 at Daytona. They missed a flip. Then later in this race, we find out that basically Brett Moffitt goes on his side and did basically, he almost flipped upside down, and Fox, they never catch that. And they show an unrelated replay to, originally to Kaz Gralla, what happened to him. They never showed a replay of the Jessica Friesen flip, by the way. And then they basically eventually showed it with him now basically not going upside down. They were wondering, where did damage come from? Well, your camera crew basically didn't catch that. Then, during the post-race, once Todd Gilliland won the race, they literally go side by side during the burnout on the front stretch. And then they basically misspelled David Gilliland's name, and it's like David Gilliland or something like that. It basically screwed that up on the TV broadcast. This broadcast was clearly one of the worst broadcasts I have seen in a very long time. It was so bad in so many areas. And look, I completely understand that they were not there, and I understand that they're not the higher-up series. It does not matter what series you are, though. It doesn't matter if you're the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, or the Truck Series. I want to see the best broadcast out there for the series because you're showing this to hundreds of thousands of fans, or even millions of fans for that matter, because sometimes you do get a million fans that watch the Truck Series. It's not the most watched series. And look, I understand that those series don't get as many viewers, and they probably don't get as much of a budget, but also, another thing I don't understand is why were they not at the racetrack? So another thing we found out is they were at the studio. So that's probably why they missed a lot of the stuff. Why were they not at the racetrack? There's a press box clearly there that they could have used to get more action. The broadcast was so bad in so many areas. It was such a joke to watch and so frustrating to watch. As just as a fan watching, I really did not understand what they were doing. It seemed like they didn't know what they were doing. They just were going through the motions and stuff. They don't really care anymore. And honestly, I'm just glad NBC is back. Now, I will say this, and I said this on Twitter, I will criticize NBC if they make a lot of mistakes, but this was just an unexcusable broadcast. It was so bad in so many areas, and people saying, well, we're going to defend it, and like some individuals that tried to call me out on Twitter for it, which I don't understand why you tried to call me out. Basically, I just do not understand. The broadcast was so bad in so many areas, and they should do a better job regardless of what series it is. They should be doing as good of a job as each of those series. It was just very frustrating to watch, but it is what it is. And hey, there's less races to watch at Fox this year, so honestly, I'm just glad there's less races to watch going forward. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Carson Hocevar. Now, this really shocked me this morning. So, David Siegel had Cody Efaw, who is the general manager of Nice Motorsports. And Cody Efaw said that Nice Motorsports is having potential conversations about going to the Cup Series in 2023. And they're talking about bringing Carson Hocevar up. They don't feel like right now that they feel like there's a place for them to go to Xfinity because there's too much, really many good teams right now. And they said that they're looking to potentially jump up to the Cup Series in 2023. With Carson Hocevar. Now, it's unclear if it would be full-time or part-time. I would think they're going to try to get a charter to run in 2023, but they're making a look at potentially jumping up next year. I'll be honest with you, I am extremely shocked, and I'll tell you why. Big reason is Carson Hocevar. Look, I think Carson Hocevar is an extremely talented driver. I think he's good enough driver. He's been close to winning races the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm going to be for real. Carson Hocevar has been great. And to be fair also to Carson Hocevar, he has been outperforming his equipment all season long. probably should have won the 3 or 4 of the last 5 races this year. He dominated Knoxville before an engine failure happened. He basically had the dominant car at Charlotte before a caution came out late and had a shot at winning Gateway earlier this year before the crash happened. And he was really fast at Sonoma too, won the pole, basically had to go to a garage. And of course, he still did this all on one leg, by the way, because his leg basically had surgery and basically said it was almost 6. They thought it was going to be 6 months. He wasn't even going to be racing. And now he's going out there racing. But here's the thing for Carson. I want to see if he does go to Cup, I don't want to see him full time, and I'll tell you why. Carson Hocevar will be rushed up way too quickly. He doesn't even have an Xfinity Series start yet. Now, look, I think if they go part-time next year and bring Carson up, that makes a ton of sense. But I also think East Motorsports should be looking at another driver to bring up and split the time for them. I'll tell you who it should be. Parker Kligerman. Parker Kligerman is a very, very talented driver. He's a driver that's been racing a lot, but also currently works in NASCAR and NBC. And he did say that he's had 7 opportunities to race in Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks in later this year, or even going into 2023. And remember, he had an opportunity to drive for Richard Childress Racing. I think Carson, no. I think it would make a ton of sense for them to split the opportunities. I think Carson's good enough to get it done, but I'm nervous that if they rush him up, I think he's going to struggle a little bit. And again, he's only 19 years old. Now, when the season starts next year in 2023, he will be 20 years old. But Carson is really, really young to where I'm a little nervous that if they rush him up next year, he will basically struggle a little bit. I just don't think the team will be great. Of course, they'll probably have to get in the lines because, again, yes, the next-gen car is different. And you're seeing a lot more teams interested in making the jump up the Cup. There's no doubt about that. But I'm just a little bit nervous at the potential of making a Carson Hocevar make the jump up to the Cup Series. I think it's be a little bit rushing him up. At least on a full-time basis, it would be rushing him up. But I think Carson's good enough to get it done, at least on a part-time basis. And I think if he does jump up, it would be great. But honestly, I'm a little nervous if he jumps up that he could end up struggling, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next major story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Helio Castroneves. Helio Castroneves raced in the SRX race this past weekend and went to victory lane. And right after the SRX race happened, Don Hawk, who basically runs it now, says that Don Hawk said that if Helio Castroneves won an SRX race, he would get an opportunity to race in NASCAR and would get an opportunity to race in the Daytona 500. Now, Helio Castroneves basically wasn't even supposed to race 24 hours prior to this and came out and won the SRX race at 5 Flags. Helio Castroneves, over the last year or two, has been having a major career resurgence. He won the Rolex 24 earlier this year. He won the Indianapolis 500 last year. And he also went on to win an SRX race at 5 Flags. And Helio Castroneves, I've been wanting to get an opportunity to race in NASCAR for a very, very long time. And let's not forget that Helio Castroneves said back last year after winning the Rolex 24 that he said that he's been interested in racing in NASCAR for a long time. In fact, he's been clamoring Roger Penske when he drove for them back in 2015. He was clamoring then to get an opportunity to race in the NASCAR Cup Series, but Roger did not budge. Now, he's been driving for Meyer Shank Racing for the last year or so. He's had some decent success. There's been times where he definitely has struggled, no doubt about that, but he's been definitely at points really, really impressive with that team this season. Has had some really strong runs, but also has had electrical issues. I've been wanting Helio Castroneves to get an opportunity for a very, very long time to race in NASCAR, and I think there is a team that's a great opportunity for him to make that jump. A team called Project 91. Now, Project 91 is a new organization that is starting in 2021 too, with basically Kimi Räikkönen, who is going to drive that car in August at Watkins Glen. Now, that is the only start that is planned for Project 91 this season. But Project 91 very recently, and basically Justin Marks said on Stacking Pennies, that they are looking to maybe run 6 to 8 races each season, including the Daytona 500. There have been plenty of drivers who have been mentioned to potentially drive this car. Jimmy Johnson mentioned to drive the Coca-Cola 600, potentially if he does the double with the team. Marcus Ericsson showed some interest to race in NASCAR. And there's been other drivers that have shown major interest, and they basically said Daniel Ricciardo's been on their mind, Valentino Rossi, and Lewis Hamilton. Now you throw Helio Castroneves in the conversation, who has shown interest in racing in NASCAR, and who wants to race in NASCAR. And honestly, I think that he should be the first driver to race in 2022. Castroneves is a very, very talented driver still to this day. He's 46 or 47 years old, but he is racing like he's 26 or 27. He's got a ton of energy right now, and he climbs the fence too, and still does a great job at that. I really want to see this happen, and I think a lot of fans really want to see that as well. For many reasons. One, he's racing really, really good right now at the moment over the last couple of years. And number two, Helio Castroneves brings a lot of energy and a lot of positive energy as well. And he's a fan favorite as well. And I think I'm not the only one who's saying this that really wants Helio Castroneves in this car as well, at least on a part-time basis or a one-off or two opportunities. And now you've got Don Hawk, who basically worked at SMI back in the day, saying they would help get the opportunity. I guarantee you Justin Marks is looking at Helio Castroneves. I think he's definitely looking at him as a potential candidate for the ride. There's a lot of drivers that Justin Marks has to think about because he's looking at international drivers, and I know he's looking at guys from Formula One to come over and do it, but I think Helio Castroneves would make a ton of sense to race in it, and I think him running in the Daytona 500 as well would absolutely be great and absolutely amazing. So, again, I really hope it happens. I hope Helio Castroneves comes over to NASCAR and races next year. I've been wanting Helio to race in NASCAR for absolutely ages, and for the fact that Helio Castroneves says that it's probably going to happen, he's going to race in NASCAR in 2023, is just absolutely incredible and absolutely amazing. Regardless if it's one start or not, I think it's amazing to see that he's looking to make that jump up to the Cup Series in 2020, jump into the NASCAR in 2023, whether it's on a one-off, regardless, I think it's great. I think there's so many drivers who probably want to race in it. You know, Lewis Hamilton said years ago that he was interested in racing it as well. And just, it's going to be so cool to see Helio Castroneves probably race in NASCAR. As they said, it's probably going to happen, and I'm definitely for him getting into NASCAR in the future. I think Julio's a great driver. It would be amazing to see him drive in NASCAR, and I'm really excited to see that he potentially could be driving NASCAR as early as 2023. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Chicago Street Course and the race that might unfortunately be gone. So we've talked about Chicago Street Course quite a bit. On Friday, around 12 or 1 p.m. in the afternoon Central Standard Time, Adam Stern reported about the Chicago Street Course. He said NASCAR is getting closer to announcing a new street race in Chicago that would start next year per sources. He also adds that it's not yet clear who would lose a race, but NASCAR appears open to dropping a road course, and Road America does not have a deal yet for 2023. Now, as soon as this report came out, this got a ton of backlash from a lot of fans, and a lot of drivers also started clowning on this as well. And I saw a lot of people really, really upset for many reasons, including myself. And I'm going to explain why I'm frustrated. Here's the thing. I am definitely open to having a street course race in a different area. I'm also open to having a street course race regardless if it's in Chicago or not. I'm definitely open to that. My big problem, though, is the fact that Road America is a road course that is being considered. Road America is a very, very popular racetrack. In fact, it is one of the largest crowds we saw last year. Over 100,000 people showed up to the race, which only one or two tracks, that being Daytona Watkins Glen, generally bring in that much attendance every single year. And Road America for years has been clamoring for a date. And a lot of people feel like that this could be a new July 4th tradition, considering we basically went from Indianapolis 2 years ago now to this weekend. And a lot of fans, I feel like, would be really, really frustrated. Now, can Road America survive without a cup date? Yes, they survived for 67 years. But they've had a hard time keeping big marquee events. And it's very understandable why NASCAR is looking at this, or looking at trying to expand into markets and bring new fans in. But there are a lot of other areas that NASCAR could look at. Road America is not a racetrack, in my opinion, that needs to get off the Cup Series schedule. And I really hope they can get a deal done. And what really is the point of them repaving the racetrack if they're not going to come back to NASCAR? That doesn't make any sense to me. And jumping back to the idea of a street course race, I'm definitely open, like I said, to a street course race. I think a street course race makes a ton of sense. You bring it to the city. People don't have to travel out. And you can bring it to the city and probably have as much attendance as a racetrack like Road America. But there also is a racetrack in the Chicago area that everyone's been wanting to come back. There's been a huge growing emergence of fans who want to bring this track back, not just in the Joliet area, but also in NASCAR in general. Chicagoland Speedway. Chicagoland Speedway produced some of the best mile-and-a-half racing in the Gen 6 era. And we also saw a massive great racing on the next-gen car on the mile-and-a-half tracks. That would be a great track to bring out to the facility. Again, it would be a great track. I think it needs to come back. Chicagoland would be a great track with the next-gen car. Also, there's a lot of different other areas that they absolutely could look at for a street course race that is not Chicago. And one thing you do have to be worried about when it comes to street course racing is the political side of things, the politics. While Lori Lightfoot, who is the mayor currently of Chicago, basically there's going to be change in mayorship probably in the next couple years, and the next administration that comes in probably may not be a big fan. And street course races generally do not a lot of time have a lot of long-term staying power unless you're Long Beach or St. Pete. St. Pete's been around for over 20 years, and Long Beach has been around for almost 50 years. We almost lost it a couple years ago with COVID, but basically, we've kept that around. And I understand why they're looking at doing it, but there's a lot of other tracks that we could lose. And really, Road America, let's talk about tracks that absolutely could be different areas. What about the Indianapolis Road Course? Fans want the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the regular Brickyard, to come back, and a lot of fans don't want the Indy Road Course anymore. I would personally like to keep Indy Road Course, but I think Indy Road Course would be a great track if you want to drop a road course. What about Sonoma? Sonoma absolutely be a track that has not produced great attendance. The racing was not spectacular, and I think a lot of fans probably would kind of want that track dropped. Now, also another option if you want to bring a street course somewhere else instead of road, basically outside of Chicago, Long Beach. Long Beach in the West Coast. Long Beach has hosted street course races for many, many years, and it generally is one of the most exciting street course races, whether it's for IMSA or whether it's for NASCAR or whether it's for basically for IndyCar. It produces amazing racing. So you have that track you could absolutely use. Or there's a lot of other tracks that have 2 dates. Why does it have to be a track that's very, very popular? I don't understand that. I don't understand why it has to be Road America of all racetracks to potentially lose the date. When you have tracks like Richmond who hosts 2 dates, Atlanta who hosts 2 dates. You have tracks like Texas Motor Speedway who produce crappy racing that people want off the schedule. People do not want Texas Motor Speedway anymore. And why the hell are we keeping Texas for 2 days, sadly, because you have the All-Star race next year, but why is Road America being considered? I don't get it. Or Phoenix, for that matter, has 2 days. Why? It's a season finale. Take one of the days from Phoenix, please. Or take a day from Las Vegas. I know they have a contract through 2030, but maybe breach the contract somehow. I'm just frustrated by the fact that Road America might lose their date for a Chicago street course race that may not succeed. It may not bring great racing, and fans, if it's not great, they won't show up probably in the future. So that's one thing to watch going forward. I'm just a little frustrated by it. It makes sense why they're looking at doing it, but at the same token, at the same time, it is really frustrating that a fan favorite track might unfortunately be going off the schedule. It's a little frustrating and a little bit irritating, and it sucks. So anyway, that is for today's NASCAR news and other motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and some of my pages on the list scheduled over that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. Do you like the idea of the Chicago street course coming on the schedule or not because of Road America being potentially dropped? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Helio Castroneves expected to race in the Daytona 500 in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel will be race picks for Nashville as we begin the second half of the season with NBC taking over. We will do that. And then on Wednesday, more than likely, will be a NASCAR news video. And then on Thursday, I've got a special video that's going to be coming out on the channel that I think you all are going to love. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.